Okay. Are we, does that do it for our interpreters?
I apologize. We're having technical difficulties with our Mandarin, but you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And again, thank you again to all of our interpreters. Good afternoon, everyone. We really appreciate you being here. This is our second iteration of our community listening sessions with our BPD Search Committee. My name is Dr. Rufus J. Falk. I serve as the Director for the Mayor's Office of Public Safety. And right now I have the honor of introducing our chairperson, Justice Geraldine Hines.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for everybody who has taken the time out of their day to be a part of this listening session. I want to begin by thanking Mayor Wu for inviting me to join with the other panel members to take on this incredibly consequential task for the city of Boston, searching for candidates to recommend to the mayor as the next police commissioner. Mayor Wu has already committed herself to transformational change in our police department. And our goal as members of the search committee is to find a slate of candidates who are, all of whom are willing, able, and committed to the kind of transformational change that these times post George Floyd demands. Everybody understands, I think, that the path to transformational change will be long and arduous. And I hope everybody understands also that this process will only achieve a leader in the police department to facilitate that change. This will not effect the change that most of us in this city want to see in policing and in the way our city is policed. Everything that is wrong with policing won't be dealt with by this process. That is ultimately a political process by which people like those on this call will be engaged to hold political leaders to account for everything that happens with that process. Today's meeting is the beginning of the process that will prioritize input from members of the public and with stakeholders. And we all owe Mayor Wu a debt of gratitude for her willingness to reject a business as usual approach and to open this process to members of the community. As we begin, I can foresee that some of the questions that will dominate our discussions: what are the essential qualities and skills that the next police commissioner must bring to the table? And what are the essential aspects of a reform agenda of policing in the city of Boston that the next police commissioner should adopt as an essential component of his or her strategy for change? And we know, based on the experience of the last session, that members of the community who are present and participating in this call today will enlighten us on their own ideas for what we should be looking for. And we are all looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Other members of the committee are here, and if any other member of the committee wishes to speak at this time, the floor is open to you before we go back to Dr. Falk for his presentation on the rules governing this session. If not, Dr. Falk, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Justice Hines. And before we continue, I want to make sure we give an opportunity for our Mandarin interpreter to introduce themselves before we get started. Terry?
Thank you。大家好，我是 Terry，我会跟Tina 我的同伙伴一起跟大家去做今天晚上的国语的同传。如果大家需要国语的翻译的话呢，您可以在屏幕下方选择地球仪的图标，然后再选择 Chinese， 也就是国语的频道。如果你是用手机或者是平板电脑上来的话呢，你可以选择屏幕下方的3个点，然后再选择语言的选项，也可以进入到这个国语的频道。好，谢谢大家。Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. And again, I just want to echo Justice Hans' sentiments that we really appreciate the community showing up during the day and putting their voices forward as we begin this process. So right now, I'm just going to go over a bit of just house cleaning, rules and regulations, sort of some expectations around the listening session. The first being that, which Brianna already mentioned, that this listening session is going to be recorded. It's an opportunity for the administration to be able to not only to go back and make sure we really can dive in depth with the commentary, but also that we can be able to keep the chat, the information from the chat, and some of those great questions that you guys will be adding, so that we can record those and make sure that they're being implemented and instituted as we move forward. Second one being in terms of the Zoom, people are muted right now. And you have the ability to use the chat function to put your questions in there as well. But also that if you do have a question, that you have an opportunity to be unmuted by the administration. So you have an opportunity to ask your question live and in person. And we're giving every individual 3 minutes, and I will have a stop recorder to make sure that we sort of give everybody their due time, and we're not cutting folks off, but we'll also give folks an opportunity to fully express and vet their thoughts out. Also, again, the session is going to be 1 hour, so we want to get the question and answer started going as soon as possible. And with that, I think we'll start by opening the floor for individuals who might have any questions or have any perspectives that they want to begin this conversation. And if you don't, we have some prompt questions that we'll be putting in the chat to sort of to get the conversations going. I see we have an individual already there, but I think that we'll have somebody put those prompt questions in there, just basically just asking around, what are some of your thoughts when you think about the commissioner? What are some of your views and perspectives about BPD as a whole, and how do you envision public safety moving forward? And I think we have our first individual, I believe that's Cade Crawford. Brianna, are you going to be able to handle it? Thank you.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Brianna, Chief of Community Engagement, supporting Rufus in facilitating today. So the 3 questions are, what do you and your community want to see in the next police commissioner? What issues related to public safety is a priority for your community, and how can BPD's leadership better support that, support your community? And in your opinion, what are the roles and responsibilities of the police commissioner? And I will unmute Cade.
And I'm sorry, but just one more point as well. So for the individuals who want to ask a question similar to what Cade did, you're going to go down to the reaction to be able to actually raise your hand. And once your hand is raised, we'll begin the process of unmuting individuals. Cade, my apologies for cutting you off, but I'll start the timer now.
Great. No problem at all. Thank you, Dr. Falk, and thank you so much to the chair, Justice Hines, for your service, and to the members of the committee and the folks on the administration who are here today. My name is Cade Crawford. I'm here representing the ACLU of Massachusetts. We submitted some written comments, which I here will be shared with the members of the committee. But I just want to share some highlights from those written comments about the ACLU's perspective on what Boston needs in our next police commissioner. So first off, we have seen that too often discipline issues, including even criminality on the part of some police officers related to things, varying from overtime fraud to, kind of routine criminal offenses, have not been able to be addressed by the department because of provisions in collective bargaining agreements. And so I think it's going to be really important for the city to hire someone who is willing to take a very close look at those agreements with the police unions and to fight for amendments to those agreements that will allow the city, the administration, the police commissioner to properly discipline officers who violate the public trust. The second issue we want to raise is racial disparities in policing in Boston. The next commissioner should commit to regularly making public information about racial disparities in policing in Boston, as well as taking a close look at those racial disparities as a day one priority and making changes to department procedure and practice to address those. Third, we believe that the next commissioner should welcome efforts to reduce the roles and responsibilities of the Boston Police Department. For years, advocates have been calling for a reduction in the police budget and to shift some functions away from the Boston Police. And we think it's very important that Boston hire a commissioner who agrees that certain functions that are currently performed by the police are best executed by other governmental and even non-governmental organizations, and should be a willing partner and not an obstacle in those efforts. Fourth, the commissioner should promote public health and community safety by supporting harm reduction efforts, specifically supporting the creation of safe consumption sites, as well as treating drug use like the public health problem that it is by ceasing to arrest people for simple drug possession. We know Massachusetts Department of Public Health data has told us that people are 120 times more likely to overdose upon release from incarceration. We cannot continue to arrest people for the crime of substance use disorder. Fifth, the commissioner should have a demonstrated commitment to policing procedures that are both lawful and just. And for the committee to understand the depth and breadth of this commitment, we really encourage you not just to look at any applicant's statements, but also to their record in the communities where they have previously held leadership positions, and to talk to the ACLU in that community, to talk to civil rights organizations and community advocates about the degree to which the rhetoric that you're hearing from an applicant really matches up with their record in the communities where they've previously served. And then finally, we believe it's very important that the next police commissioner be someone who is aligned with the democratic vision of policing in Boston. And just one example of that is in 2018, as we all know, the voters of Suffolk County elected Rachel Rollins to be our district attorney. And DA Rollins had campaigned on a promise to focus on serious crimes and not to prosecute lower level offenses. However, we never heard an attendant commitment from the Boston Police Department not to arrest for many of those lower level offenses that in fact ADAs often do not prosecute. We know that people can face very serious ongoing problems simply because they're arrested, even if they're never prosecuted. And I know I've been speaking for a long time, so I'll just leave it at that. And again, thank you all for your public service, and say that the ACLU remains at your disposal if you want any information from us. Thank you.
No, I think we all appreciate that, Kate, and you submitted these comments all as well as in paper form as well, right? Your commentary. Oh, she's muted now, but thank you, Kate. And I was reminded that we should remember to sort of speak slower for our interpreters. And I will, as somebody who has a habit of speaking fast, I'll make sure that I continue to remind myself to do so. Again, we have questions in the prompt. Again, asking about the role of BPD, your sort of vision for public safety moving forward, what your ideas and sort of attributes of what you believe should be exhibited by the next commissioner. So if individuals asking questions, please use that raise hand feature, and let's keep this conversation going. I don't see any hands right now, which is shocking. I know some of these individuals in the chat, which is very shocking to me that they're not asking questions. Maybe they treat me nice because it's my birthday today. That might be it. That might be. Okay. Oh, there we go. Look, one of my guys since I've known him since a teen, Mike Kozu. So I will ask Mike Kozu to unmute himself. And he has some cool shades on.
Sorry, I lost my glasses delivering food, so you get my shades. I want to thank Justice Hines and members of the committee for your leadership and taking the time to allow us to submit our concerns. Clearly, I've been able to work with a number of people on here and addressing the significant public safety issues that face our city. At the same time, deal with some of the challenges that has taken place within the police department. We are looking forward to continuing very strong police community partnerships in addressing these safety issues. We really look forward to you identifying and recruiting candidates that understand the importance of having strong police community relationships. At the same time of understanding how do we have transparency when there's challenges that come within the department, how do we in a timely fashion address those challenges and deal with in a comprehensive way, how can we resolve some of those issues? And I agree with the previous comment about the civil service and trying to deal with some of the challenges that come up with the collective bargaining. How can we deal with those issues from preventing more prompt resolution of conflicts and issues that have come up as we go forward. There are many people within the department that are very strong partners with the community. Clearly, the commissioner who is selected should really reach out to Mamleo and some of our other law enforcement officers of color who have different groups. We have very clear perspectives of some of the racial disparities that have taken place within discipline, within leadership opportunities, just within the whole promotion of their follow through. At the same time, we also have very clear needs for specialized citywide units because a lot of our issues are citywide. So I do want to point out particularly the school police unit, the Youth Violence Strike Force, and the drug control units have all been very, very helpful in addressing a lot of the concerns that residents on an ongoing basis have raised within the Grove Hall area, the area that I've been able to work with for over the last 25 years. So as we go forward, clearly we need people, we need a commission that's really going to prioritize the reaching out to young people, making sure that young people are included as part of this process. I really appreciate work that Mr. Forrester has done. And I think some of the work that he's done can really be elevated in terms of how do we get young people to buy in, to feel that they can be a part of this whole process in terms of understanding how do we address the public safety issues and challenges that we face at this point in time. But thank you again, and we look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Mike. And again, another reminder to just try to remember to slow down when we are giving our responses to allow our interpreters to be able to capture all of your thoughts and insight. And we have a few more hands.
Nina, I'm unmuting you now. I think it's going to ask you. Oh, there you go.
Hi, yes, I hadn't seen that function before. Thank you. My name is Nina Salvaggio. I live in Hyde Park and have for almost 20 years, originally from Chicago. I think the responsibility of the next police commissioner is some of what Mike talked about with regards to transparency. I also think there is a lack of I think there needs to be a different approach to policing. I think we all think that. That's why most of us are here. And I think representation with women is incredibly lacking. The city, Massachusetts demographics, about 30% are people of color. Over half are women. And the police department, last time I looked, was about 14-15% women. So really, really far from any kind of equity or parity. And there's been numerous studies and research that show women police differently. And that's based on communication style, gender, socialization. And I think we would benefit from more women in leadership roles in positions where their input makes a difference. So being forced to work the midnight shift or the first half when you are a mom, maybe a single mom, there's something built into the formula of being a police officer that implies if you have a family, someone else at home is taking care of them. And I know from personal experience, that's not always the case. And so then what does that mean for parents or working moms who want to be a police officer, want the benefits of it? So there's that aspect. I think there's something inherent that limits the recruitment pool. I also think like toxic masculinity, right? Like, what are we teaching recruits in the police academy? How do we talk about communication? How do we talk about power dynamics? Like, what is all of that? What are we training them to do, right? Like, obviously we want police officers to diffuse and stay safe, but at the same time, there's a lot of things about gender that come into play with how we police in this country. So I would love someone who's open to that different mindset. I would love someone who represents a different perspective. I would love a woman. I know that we had one, and that's great, but I don't think having one changed the entire system. And so whether or not they're from within the police department or external, I've been reading all those articles. I think there's pros and cons to all of that, but I think we need to think more about women in policing if we really want to change a lot of what's wrong with policing in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina, for your commentary. It's much appreciated. Our next participant, Mr. Cavallo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is it afternoon? Yes, it is afternoon. Just certainly proud to be in this moment with all of you. And I want to appreciate you, Dr. Falk, Chief Miller, Justice Hines, past Commissioner Daves, Abigail, everybody. But excited to be in this space. And I'm the ED, as in the director of the Boston Human Rights Commission. I'm in City Hall. You can probably see the background a little bit. But I also had the privilege to be a prosecutor in the city of Boston for a few years, and then actually was elected. I had the privilege to be on Beacon Hill as a state representative and work on police reform. So this issue is near and dear to my heart. In fact, I was on the board of Teen Empowerment. So keep up the good work, Mr. Forrester. But so I bring my greetings in that regard on behalf of perhaps in my current capacity, but with the experience of having been at the table, if you will, over the past. I was a prosecutor 10 years ago in Roxbury, and then I prosecuted gun cases downtown as well. So when I think about, the police and where policing is in America, I think about, where we've come from. Right. If you think about almost 10 years ago when Black men were being killed throughout the country, I think at that point I was a state rep, there was a lot of sort of hands off sort of space. This does not happen in the city of Boston. Right. But police officers on a daily basis felt it. Right. Felt the sort of the backlash against police and policing in general. Right. And then you fast forward to 2020 and George Floyd. Various things happened. We changed legislation at the state level to create the Post Commission, right? And now we have within City Hall, I see my good friend and colleague Stephanie Everett here with the OPAD office and some of the changes with the co-op system, certainly with the change within City Hall. So what I think about this new police commissioner, right? I even think about, seeing Willie Gross standing at the podium and saying, we welcome the changes that the police task force made, recommended for the city, right? Which again, created the OPED office, right? What I think about the next person, so where do we want to go now, right? We want to, who's this person that's going to take this work to the next level, right? The specifics, obviously we can talk about transparency and accountability, and certainly, information to the public and working with the public. But really, this person needs to sort of, I think one other person mentioned this earlier, is that this person needs to sort of look at what's happened, particularly the recommendations, again, of 2020, but take it to the next level. Reimagine how we think about policing. Reimagine what it is to be a police officer in America, in the city of Boston. So, I yield the rest of my time to the members of the public, but really we need someone that's a visionary. I know some of you know I ran for DA as well. What Rachel Rollins did, right, to sort of reimagine prosecution, it's sort of what I'm talking about here. Like what it does, it's not the same thing as just, implementing for, various reforms. It's not the same thing by abiding the law. It's thinking outside the box, right, and doing things that we want in America for our police officers to do. So I'll end there, Dr. Falk, but I'm happy to help in any way that I can with this process, but I'm very encouraged by the people in the room and certainly members of the public that are here as well.
Thank you for your commentary, Evandro. And again, I think you hit on a good point that this idea about the reimagination of public safety does not stop with BPD, does not stop with the commissioner. It's a role that we all should be looking to play because we all have some insight and experience that we can lend to this, like you said, this reimagining of how we engage with the criminal justice system and policing in general in the city of Boston. So again, questions, please use the raise hand feature that is in the reaction tab at the bottom. Again, those questions are sort of leading questions that we have, or asking you about what are your thoughts around the new commissioner? What do you think the role is? What do you think some of the priorities that they should have? We've heard buzzwords like community policing. I've heard things like mental health. How do you feel in terms of the new commissioner? What do you think that, or what type of role should they play in the institution of those new initiatives or those priority areas? We're talking about public safety as a whole. What are your visions for public safety as a whole? And how do you want to see our police department to move as we move forward as a city moving together? So again, questions, raise hand feature. Don't be shy. We have another one of our,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna have just introduce one of our committee members that just joined, Bishop Dickerson. And I also wanted to flag, if you do not want to publicly speak, we do have a survey that is translated into 12 different languages, and it lives on this site. So I'll just drop it here. But again, to Dr. Rufus Falk's point, if you do want to vocalize your concerns or comments, please go to the reaction function at the bottom of your screen and use the raise hand function.
I'm sorry, I had a meeting to go over time, and I'm glad to be here. William Dickerson, one of the committee members, and I have a back. Did we do the introductions, or you don't?
We can do introductions. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've been doing prison ministry for a number of years, over 35 years, and I'm a former chaplain with the Boston Police Department. I'm a senior pastor of Greater Love Tabernacle in Dorchester, and glad we're having these candid discussions to help shape the reality of what we like to see for as far as a new police commissioner that we presented, before the mayor. So thank you to Justice Hines and to the mayor's staff and to all those who are on this call on today. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop. And we have a raised hand, Ms. Rodriguez.
Hi, thank you for your time. My name is Teresa Rodriguez. I live in Jamaica Plain, and I've lived there for about 25 years. I grew up in Cambridge. I'm a teacher and have worked in BPS and other charter schools. And I guess I agree with many of the things people have shared, Project Right and other organizations. I didn't know if you could consider the same way that BPS has 8 languages that it considers kind of, I guess, BPS languages that they translate everything into. I don't know if there could be a preference or just obviously not a requirement that the new police commissioner speak a language that would be useful, that there's a significant number of people in the city, regardless of what that is among the languages that the city recognizes and chooses. But it does seem to me that it would provide a disposition and an openness that might be well received. And again, I know there might be legal parts to that, but just as a preference, someone that would be able to communicate with other segments of the population in addition to English. Obviously, we need translators in this meeting and always available, but I think that would be just another sign of a welcome change in how we see that. And I guess the last thing I would say, as a person who has family members that work in specialized units, I do find that when they go through themselves traumatizing events, I wish it was required that they check in with the mental health providers that are available. I know they've supported many officers and the peer supporters help, but sometimes I wish it was, you are required to go, you can check in and then you make a plan from there, but at least after having been in traumatic circumstances themselves. I wish it was a department policy or someone who was open to that idea, that it wasn't like, go ahead if you want to. It was a requirement after very difficult circumstances, and having seen people that I'm very close to go from previous and the bombing situation and just working days on end. And even now responding to more acute circumstances, I feel like I know the resources are there and have been used, but I sort of wish that we would look for someone that made it a policy that they had to go, even just once, because then it opens up the possibility of that being something that is an aberration that you would go, just because I think that trauma that the officers themselves have comes home to the family as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your poignant commentary and offering a policy suggestion as well. And I think also in the chat forum, if individuals have ideas around policies that they would like to see enacted within their communities or in policing as a whole, or around particular issues, please feel free to add those to the chat, or to use a raise hand feature and be able to ask those questions live. So again, this is an opportunity for the community to give their insight and thoughts around policing within the city of Boston, and in particular, the search for a new commissioner. So if you please have any ideas or thoughts or concerns, please feel free to take this time to express those. Maybe any thoughts from any of our committee members from some of the commentary that they've heard? We have another hand.
I think it's Issa. I'm unmuting you.
It's not easy, it's Ramilda. I'm sorry, I don't know how it came up.
Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm sorry, I don't know how it came up either. I see Ramilda, but yeah, I don't know if anyone has brought this up already, but I would love to see more of what the community engagement team is doing in BPD. See more of Nora's staff and more of that policing, and also seeing more commanders, more people in higher ranks doing some of the things that herself, and like when we come out there, you see her and Gerard, and they're interacting, and they're actually asking other officers to interact. And it's even in where we have events, and they're more, wanting to know if the officers are not interacting or not participating, they're pushing for that. So we would love to see more of that. I don't know how that would work as far as, the committee and pushing that with the higher ranks, because sometimes that gets in the way, but that's something that we need to see more of, more outside of their car, not just patrolling, but actually getting to know the community, in the community that they serve. Because most of these officers, they don't come from where we come from. So definitely seeing more of that and seeing more of the people that we come from where we come from, because there's a cultural difference. So we definitely need more people that are like-minded, that can understand, the language and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just pose a question to the people who are gathered here? What is the single most important quality that you think we should be looking for? What is the quality that is a deal breaker if this person does not possess this quality? What is essential? What is the single most essential quality that we should be looking for?
We have things in the chat like visionary and empathetic. Go ahead, Bishop.
Yeah, I think having a bridge builder. I think it'd be good if people start thinking along those lines. A person who either bridge the gaps between different ethnic groups, different demographics of people. Transgenerational. Somebody knows how to work with different age groups. someone mentioned earlier about the women and how they're perceived and how they police versus the males, how they police. And it takes a unique individual to bridge gaps from a plethora of different perspectives. So I think that's very, very key.
I see Timothy raising his hand. I can unmute him as well. It's gonna ask to unmute you. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's going to take tremendous courage for a person who is a visionary, for a person who wants to be open to change. It's not going to be easy. We know change is hard. And that person needs to be a tremendous listener, but also have the courage of their convictions to not only push for change, but to help people understand change and continue to communicate that. So it's going to be a major, it's going to require tremendous courage.
Thank you so much for that. And these qualities coming through the chat, compassionate, someone who's open to challenging the status quo. Thank you for sharing those. And I'll unmute Evan.
Hi, thank you so much. Evan George, I'm a community member here in Dorchester. And I fully agree with all of the virtues that people are expressing, things like compassion, courage, empathy. And I know how difficult that would be during an interview process to be able to assess and measure those articulately. So I think something which would be a great indicator of those qualities is a police commissioner who can articulate and is fully behind the idea that a government agency cannot be expected to monitor and investigate itself. And I think that would be a very bold look for somebody who has sort of that understanding that we cannot expect any organization, never mind the police themselves, to conduct their own internal investigations and have that awareness that it is vital to the success of the Boston Police Department that independent agencies or an independent government body be in charge of the regulatory systems. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Evan. Appreciate that. Compassion and ability to lead and to be a culture change. Some of the other commentary that's been in the chat function. Any other attributes or thoughts or sort of behaviors or even a history that folks on this call would love to see the next commissioner to actually possess and also actually has put into practice as well, that it's not all theory, but they also have some practical experience doing these things as well. Any thoughts, additional thoughts?
Also, I think if you're unable to do the raise your hand function, if you do want to drop in the chat, if you want to be unmuted, that might be easier because I think some people might not be able to do that. If you want to drop in the chat, if you wanted to be unmuted, I can do that as well.
We've heard this concept of community policing a lot. It'll be good to hear what folks' thoughts are or definition of community policing is. It'll be good as a community we can have a sort of a unifying definition of that we can sort of more work from. I've heard Ramilda mention having officers who are present in community events outside of police cars. Are there other ideas that folks have when community policing comes to mind? And is that something that the next commissioner should be a leader of? So I'll be interested to hear that as well. But thoughts, please use the raise hand feature or just utilize the chat function as well. This might be a first for me. I never had to beg folks to to talk on a community listening session.
I'm co-signing that. There's some familiar names, and I know that you guys have very insightful thoughts and input, and we as a committee, we as a city desperately want and need to hear your thoughts on this very important decision. So please take this opportunity to do so. I see some people like, okay, Reverend Daly. I'll mute you. There you go. I think you're unmuted.
Yes,
now.
yes, thank you there. You all can hear me now?
Yeah.
Well, thank you to be a part of Rufus. I was trying to just listen and I don't want to be repetitive, but when we speak in terms of community policing, I don't want, to reiterate anything that has already been said, but community policing, just being present, having the commission really be present. We used to do in the past a lot of community walk, we used to do a lot of door knocking. It was part of training the law enforcement to engage even with the store owner, getting to know the store owners as well, the small businesses, and supporting small business as well. Having active dialogue with the youth, not just the youth in the schools, but also the youth that are perhaps not connected to the schools, but are kind of living, trying to survive in the streets, and is really reaching out as well to them, to even provide a safe space for them to share some of their struggles, what they're going through. So I believe in we went through from just doing night walks, because it's not like during the day, but it's also during some of the evening hours to really build and connect with community who may not come out to these community meetings, but just, try to meet them where they are, and just having a commission that's open to doing that, and open to allowing even the law enforcement to actively participate, even evening hours, to just have these dialogues and conversation and build relationships with a lot of the young people that are in the community, in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Rev. And from that commentary, it sounds like just an acknowledgement that the police department is a part of the community, and folks within the community don't want to see the police when incidents occur. We want to see the police to be a part of events that are happening, whether it be basketball tournaments or whether it be seeing kids outside of school, to be more integral into the day-to-day work within the community, to really establish those relationships that you were talking about. Thank you for that, Rev.
Dr. Falk, we were talking just now, and there were a lot of comments about personal qualities that we should be looking for. I would be interested to know what the members of the community think about which police reform is the most important thing that we should insist that the new police commissioner be committed to. Somebody just mentioned outside review, independent review. There have been a lot of suggestions about changes that people want to see, and I'm interested in hearing what the community has to say about helping us to prioritize the ideas that everybody has been expressing over these last 2 meetings. We obviously won't get a commissioner who is going to embrace all of these ideas. So what is the most important transformational strategy that we should insist on in the candidates who are recommended to the mayor? I'd be interested to hear what people have to say about that.
I think we see Helen with, and hopefully can address some of Justice Hines' questions. Just unmuted you. Might ask to him. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. So I got my start at the Boston Police Department, have since had experience being union leadership and served at the executive level elsewhere. Now I'm a full-time lecturer in criminology and manage corporate internal investigations. I was one of 3 Asian females, not of mixed race, And there were not that many more of mixed race when I was with BPD. It was a very, very hostile work environment for the third Asian woman on the department and the first to go to special operations. The last time it was mentioned that the elephant in the room was having Ed Davis on the search committee, since he was voted no confidence by the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers. When the bigger elephant in the room, why we're here, is because it is coming out more and more, the culture of cover-up and corruption within the Boston Police Department when it comes to officer-involved sex crimes, like Rose Sr., Cliff McHale, incident partner violence among cops, and even like the person from the ACLU said, overtime offenses. But no leader has taken responsibility for any of that, not Davis or anyone else. And the new one, the new commissioner, must own up. Brady and Giglio case precedent dictates there must not be someone who uses slurs, like Chinky, like another chief Michelle Wu hired, or Japs, like a cop that Ed Davis knows, a former sniper who taught when and how to use deadly force at the range, use slurs online and in text. Ed Davis knows who I mean. Because for calling cover up on that racist cop, Ed Davis put me at a desk. And transformational change, as the chairperson said, is going to come with somebody who isn't going to orchestrate retaliations, somebody who isn't going to look the other way rather than uphold the law, someone who is willing to cross blue lines and break through blue walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Wow. You see some other commentary within the chat. I think it's important to have somebody who's committed to the future of safety in the city and protecting our citizens. We see some other policies that folks have mentioned. And we also see folks who are commending Helen for her bravery for giving her statement. And I want to second that as well. Justice Hines, I think we're running into the final 10 minutes. So it might be at this time, might be an opportunity for us to make sure that, again, still giving folks opportunity if they want to ask questions. We still have a few minutes to do so, but just want to let folks know that we are closing in on the final 10 minutes. And but this isn't the end of the community engagement process. The committee is going to be speaking with a variety of other groups, ensuring that we receive the input of not only community members, but also community members who happen to be police officers as well. So we want to make sure that we are hearing the voice of those who do the work every day, and also the words of individuals who live within the communities that BPD serves. So again, we want to leave a few minutes for folks who want to put their commentary in the chat. And again, we are recording the chat, also recording this Zoom meeting as well, to make sure that we can fully go through and really dissect and really take in all of the information that our participants gave us. But again, I want to make sure I leave room for time if anybody else had any additional questions or commentary before I hand it over to our Madam Chair, Justice Hines.
Okay, if nobody else is volunteering, let me just close out by saying this conversation has been so rich with ideas, and I am personally inspired by the passion and the commitment that those who have participated have shown in their comments, the thoughtful ideas that people have brought to us. I can't wait to get into this transcript. I've been keeping notes, but I'm sure I didn't grab a hold of everything important that was said here today, especially in the chat. And I want to just express the appreciation that I know every member of the committee feels for the time and effort that everyone has put in to enlighten us on this process. And we will do everything we can to take heed of what's been spoken here. I don't think that anybody needs to be concerned that that what has been said here will be forgotten, and that this is part of some show process. Absolutely not. We're all committed to taking to heart the important and meaningful comments that people have made here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. To wrap up this session, I just want to remind, I will drop the survey in the chat. Please share it with anyone that wasn't able to make it today. The survey gives you space to talk about your experience, as well as concrete suggestions on what we should be thinking about and who in shaping who the next police commissioner should be. Thank you once again. And this is the first of many conversations. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Design, Brianna, Dr. Falk, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Goodbye.